Now, it begins with something that we share with many of our vertebrate cousins, and pretty much all mammals, I guess. And that's what Justin Barrett calls a HAD, or hyperactive agent detection device. If, well, you don't have snow here, but something that we have back in the East is your dog is sort of snoozing on the hearth, and some snow falls off the roof and lands with a thud outside, and the dog is up in a shot and looking around. Grrr. That's the dog's HAD doing a false alarm. Who's there? Who's there? What do you want? It's supposing there's an agent, something to confront as an agent out there, and it's on hair trigger in all of us for a very good evolutionary reason. In a dog, or a dolphin, or a wolf, or a bear, this orientation response pretty well evaporates after a few seconds. False alarm, back to sleep. But in us, with our echoic brains, with our imaginations, it builds, and it builds, and it repeats. And what started off as just a wild speculation, who's there, who's there? Oh my gosh, did that tree say something? Was it talking? Is that a talking tree? Oh my God, a talking tree. It's a talking tree. Oh my God, a talking tree, a talking tree. Oh my God. Hey, Joe, there's a talking tree. Oh, what a talking tree. And round it goes, and pretty soon, at least a few of you think, gosh, maybe there's a supernatural talking tree out in the woods. Now, most of these ideas are pretty stupid, actually. Well, not surprisingly. They're sort of amplified random noise. But a few of them are more memorable, that is to say, more unforgettable than others. Those are the ones that keep making copies in your brains. But your brains are a limited resource, so pretty soon there's competition, and only the most vivid and memorable and grabby of these ideas is going to hang in there in competition. And what do we find? We find in every tribal culture, we find a population of invisible supernatural agents of all kinds. These are the ones that these people believe in. And how long have they believed in them? Who knows? It's very hard to say. It's an oral culture. Now, that's not religion, that's superstition. But those are the wild ancestors of the organized religions of today. A population of imps, goblins, fairies, gods, leprechauns. They compete for rehearsal space, and some of them win. And what are the winners for? They're for occupying the minds they find themselves in, and that's all. I tell people I'm doing an evolutionary theory of religion, and it's like a reflex. They say, oh yes, evolutionary theory of religion. Well, you know, every human group that's ever been studied has religion, so it must be doing us some good. What's it for? What do you think religion is for? Must be for something, because every society has them. And I say, yeah, and every society that's ever been studied also has the common cold. What's that for? The common cold exists for itself. It exists because it can. And the same is true of the superstitions that are the ancestors of folk religion, of organized religion. They're what I call folk religion. So, how are spoken words and folk songs like squirrels, rats, pigeons, and barn swallows? What do those species all have in common? They're not domesticated, but they are evolved to live in close proximity with human beings. They are elegantly evolved to inhabit the same ecological niche with us, but we haven't domesticated them. We don't own them, we don't take care of them. They're wild, but they're a very interesting subset of wild species that have evolved to live with us. The same thing is true of spoken words. They don't require stewards, they don't require guardians. They have plenty of them. We have grammar scolds and language usage mavens. You know, there's William Safire and all these people that are always telling us what we ought to say and what we ought not to say. But in fact, such people are strictly unnecessary. Languages can get along very well without them. They will survive just fine. They've survived for thousands of years. All the other languages that are still going strong, most of them don't have any language scolds. Now, it's interesting. You see, written language is different. Written language has to be taught. You have to go to school. You do have to have guardians. Many cultural items require stewardship. Many don't. Folk songs, you can't get them out of your head. Calculus isn't like that. or have maybe here at Caltech, I don't know. But it just might be Caltech's different. But in general, some of our cultural products have to be very assiduously tended to, and fostered, and preserved, and protected, transmitted through the ages. Those are the domesticated memes. The wild memes are the ones like fashions and folk songs and spoken words that just evolve without anybody trying to evolve them. Then, of course, there's every sort of intermediate case. Now, how clever it was of sheep to acquire shepherds. Look what they got for this. They got to outsource all their problems: protection from predators, food finding, health maintenance. And all of this at a rather small cost, some loss of free mating. It's been a tremendous bargain for those sheep. By the way, domesticated animals have smaller brains than their wild relatives. Even normalizing for the animals that have been raised for meat, and so they tend to have heavy bodies. No. Use it or lose it is a motto that really applies in evolution. And if you don't need your brain, it goes. And they don't need their brain because they've got stewards. They've got people that are their guardians who are taking care of them. So they can get stupid and fat. So the sheep weren't clever, of course, but it was a very clever move. The nearest wild relatives of the sheep you could probably carry off in a few arcs. But the sheep, there's, I don't know, hundreds of millions of sheep in the world today. It's a huge fitness boost if that's what you care about. The cleverness is not the sheep's cleverness, but it's the cleverness of natural selection itself. This is Leslie Orgul's second rule, quip made by Francis Crick some years ago. Evolution is cleverer than you are. Now, what he meant by this, of course, is not intelligent design, not Francis Crick. And in fact, I think if you want to understand what is illusory, what is, quite frankly, a hoax in intelligent design, if you just understand Orgul's second rule, you can see what's wrong with intelligent design. What Orgul's second rule tells you is that although the process of natural selection has no foresight, no purpose, no intelligence, the products of evolution are brilliant. They are incredibly ingenious. You can reverse engineer them and be staggered with awe at how incredibly ingenious and clever and devious these designs are. But it's not the purposeful intelligence of anybody. Something similar happened to the wild memes of religion. They got themselves domesticated. They acquired stewards who were prepared to devote their lives to their flourishing. But, you know, there's a quid pro quo. Many features of that dairy cow are not so much for the benefit of the cow as for the benefit of the dairy herder. That's the price of domestication. So that when we look at religious memes, at the memes of organized religion, the domesticated memes, we should be on the lookout for rather different selection pressures to have been operating than in the wild days. I got you as far as a bunch of God memes or supernatural entity memes in the wild religion, but now we have to start thinking about the uses of domesticated God memes. One of them that, again, this is speculation, but it's guided by facts and it's subject to confirmation. We can design inquiries and investigations and experiments which can shed light on whether it's true or not. One idea which I've loved for years comes from Julian Jaynes' remarkable, eccentric but brilliant book, The Origins of Consciousness and the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind. He suggests, that book has about 100 really good ideas and about 1,000 bad ones, but this is one I think of the good ones. He suggests that when when cities began to get large, when people began to live in larger groups, decision-making became really onerous and difficult. People just didn't know how to make up their minds. And it was harder than it had ever been before. And so they ended up, sort of in desperation, looking for what he called exopsychic means of decision-making, like flipping a coin, like consulting tea leaves, like throwing the I Ching, like sacrificing animals and looking at their entrails, burning virgins and seeing which way the smoke blows, you know. In fact, there are hundreds of different techniques that evolved back in those days for flipping a coin. A particularly useful one was basically to consult the gods, because that was useful for many reasons. First of all, it got you off the hook. If the decision you made was wrong, well, don't blame me, you know. I'm just the messenger. I got the idea from the God, who can never, of course, contradict you. Nice thing about the idea is that a practice like that can spread without anybody understanding the rationale for it. They don't have to understand the rationale, any more than the sheep have to understand the rationale for domesticating themselves. It's a good idea, but they don't have to recognize it. Same thing is true of these.